Good afternoon. Welcome everyone to sort of a special webinar based on the current weather conditions around the country. We decided to put together a short webinar here about winter weather driving and preparedness. So we do appreciate you all taking some of your time out to join us today. My name's Steve Kessler, and I'm going to host the program. And before I introduce Paul, our guest, just a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, those of you that are logged in are muted, so we can't hear you. So if you have a question or a comment, you can type it into the chat box there. There's a link in the tray in the bottom to put your question or comment in the chat box. There's also a Q&A box. You can use either one, but that's how you can communicate with us, and we'll try to make sure we answer all your questions. By the way, if you don't mind, why don't you all just jump on the chat, tell us who you are, who you're with, and where you're from, and that way we'll kind of know who's out there that's joined us on the webinar. So while you all are doing that, let me introduce our guest today. I'm very happy to introduce Paul Smits, I'm sorry. I've known Paul for quite a long time now, and they're a good client of ours. Paul is a safety director for Wayne Transports, Inc. They're based out of Rosemont, Minnesota. So being a company running out of Minnesota, they're a little bit familiar with winter weather and such. I do happen to know Paul is about a 20-year veteran in this industry, and also happy to let you know he's a 20-year Air Force veteran also. So thank you for your service, Paul. So it looks like some folks are logging in, and I see some good customers that have joined us. So Paul, if you're ready to go, I'll let you take over the program.
Wonderful. Thanks, Steve, for that introduction, and welcome everybody to the webinar on this. Steve, when you gave me that call and said, hey, would you like to talk about winter weather? I'm like, wow, yeah, we're quite in the middle of it. So it's kind of exactly where we're sitting. And then I remember you telling me, it's like, yeah, we're expecting snow and weather down here in Texas. I'm like, well, that kind of kiboshes my plans to go south for a while. So we're just going to stick here for a bit. But yeah, winter weather preparedness, driving is something that we obviously deal with a lot up here in the northern states. I'm seeing a lot of people check in from Texas, Alabama, Illinois, Shane from Nova Scotia. I'm like, wow, okay, we're all over the place. But yeah, there's something for sure that you can say. We definitely have had some crazy weather, right, Steve? It's just been nuts.
Well, I think we've had more serious winter weather than we generally have, especially far south. I'm here in the DFW area, and we have sleet and snow, and then it'll rain, and then it'll freezing rain. We've got a whole mixture of it going on here today. And I'll tell everybody, I was telling Paul this morning, here in the DFW area, we've only had 3 snows of more than 4 inches in 40 years. So it's a rare thing for us down here, and I'm sure we have clients and other companies that are looking in on our webinar today that have drivers that don't drive in this very much.
Right.
So we thought it might be a good idea to put out some kind of pointers and some tips that might help our trucking companies out there.
Well, it's a great idea, Steve, and I'm really glad that I've been given this opportunity to do this and share. Being in this industry and working pretty much in the this upper area of our great America has definitely taught me a lot of things. Now, when you talk about winter weather driving preparedness, I mean, there's a decent amount of common sense that comes into this, but sometimes we miss some very low hanging fruit that we can be really, really good at. And so that's kind of what I'm going to dive into. One of the most common questions that I get in the safety realm is this next one. And it kind of applies to just about everything. Is there a magic bullet to any of this? Is there something that will just instantly shoot it down, or is there something we can take to make it all go away? The answer is no, so stop searching. It's going to take work. It's going to take several steps for all of us to do. in our positions to make that happen. So before we get into what those things are, let's just quickly talk about what the risks that we face when it comes to winter weather preparedness or just the driving experience. So obviously, whenever you're dealing with winter weather driving conditions, you're going to have those inherent natural additional risks, and those are possibilities for very serious collisions resulting in injury or death. And almost always you're going to have property damage. So I mean, what happens in those is, it does have an effect on you, your operations, your people. Just so we understand, just basic numbers, and this is again just basic. There we go. So just some quick stats. 2022, I looked these up, and it looks like we had almost 500 fatalities, and then that year, 32,000 injuries, over 150,000 collisions, all basically related to sleet, snow, ice, these winter conditions that we're talking about. So it's a very serious thing, and it can have an effect on us, and that effect is basically not only with our people, but also it can affect our bottom line, customer relations, and how we're perceived by our customers because of basically safety ratings and things like that. So all this stuff has an impact. So this is our risks that we're looking at. So how do we control these risks? What do we do to help basically fix that? What is the key? Okay, well, there's several keys, and a lot of it is, like I said before, common sense. We're looking at things that we can do and should do. But one of the things that I always point out is start early with your awareness and your training concept. And yes, I'm going to stand on a bit of a soapbox here with Vertical Alliance or for Infinity Workforce Solutions. They have a great selection of things that you can use. All right. So the key is keep the drip going. Start early, keep the awareness training going, and then keep it going throughout the season. Don't just put it up once and think that does it. It's too easy to get complacent and fall back into old habits. By starting early, it gets their mindset of these conditions are coming. Be aware, be ready for them. All right. And whenever you have a lesson that happens within the organization that revolves around one of these things, use those lessons learned to turn them back around into positive messages back to your fleet. Don't be afraid to use either successes or shortcomings to help your fleet to be successful. So many people keep these things, especially safety departments. We love to hold this information in, and we don't like to share it because we're afraid, or maybe ownership is afraid. Use this communication tool to actually help your fleet be more aware. They learn, believe it or not, from each other, and they listen to each other probably more than they listen to us. So if you share a lesson that one of your drivers learned with the rest of your drivers, it's very powerful. Also, in the end, don't forget to praise and make sure that the drivers that are doing really well get that pat on the back. That will then actually go through the organization. And you don't need to do it with just the drivers, but you can also do it with your operational staff as well. If you hear them talking to the drivers about, hey, it's a little snowy out there, be careful, pat them on the back. Hey, thanks for taking the time to let that driver know to drive safe. These positive inspirations will have an amazing impact on your fleet.
Hey, Paul, sorry to interrupt you, but you're talking about lessons learned. Do you make use of camera footage, for example, to show a good reaction by a driver as part of helping learn lessons?
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. So one of the things that we do is we do a weekly safety awareness video. So we do this through through Infinity, through our LMS, and basically we put out a video that's about 3 to 5 minutes long. It's a brief safety tip on something that's going on either in the fleet or something that we see as a potential issue. And one of the things that I did recently within the last year is I started gathering and having my safety supervisors actually feed me positive footage where near collisions have happened and the driver's done something really well.
Right.
I'll call out the driver's name, call them a driver star. I'll send them a gift card. These are things that help to enhance that safety relationship and build that culture. So yeah, good question, Steve.
That's great.
So what about awareness and training? Awareness and training is so critical in this. It is by far, in my imagination, in reality as well, that is the most critical step of this. And as I said, you want to basically get out there and start your campaign before the weather hits you. Know your location. Now, obviously down in the southern area, you guys weren't expecting any of this, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, look, guys, we could get weather. These are some of the things that you can do to help prevent collisions and basically keep yourself and everybody else safe out there. Making sure that you take time to use any and all resources available. So what do I mean by any and all resources? Well, if you're a customer with Infinity, obviously they have the resources immediately available. Other things you can do through either ELD messages, email messages, anything else through your operations team, keep that communication going to keep that awareness high. Again, you want to keep that going. You don't want to slow down and let that pressure off. Make sure that you're taking time to always be consistent with your messaging and with your value on that safety element. It's extremely important. So much time is spent just giving the message and then backing away or changing that message, and then that consistency gets lost. And then there's a bit of confusion that could happen in there. Psychologically, they start shutting down. So keep that message consistent whenever you're doing that, okay? I didn't see part of my slide here. So one of the other things that when it comes to the resources, so what you want to do is engage your drivers, engage the coworkers in helping to identify any safe or unsafe driving practices. So engaging is one of the keys. Second key to this is the encouragement element. At all levels, you want to encourage and include your operations team in keeping that message and tempo up. What I like to do is I like to go through the dispatch here in Rosemont and then get my safety supervisors in their regions to have regular communications with their dispatchers to see how are your drivers doing in the weather. When was the last time that you had just a brief conversation or checked in on their well-being and seeing how they're doing mentally? Because when you get into the winter weather, a lot of things can happen besides the safe driving. The mental stress that comes with driving in winter weather can be very taxing on an individual. So checking on their mental well-being as well is another important step. And your dispatchers and your operations people, talk with them on a daily basis. So that's your biggest key into that world. Finally, don't ever forget to share, again, I'm going to repeat some things here, but share the lessons learned through successes and adversities, basically to help to strengthen your team, and never let off that accelerator. Just keep that accelerator going, okay?
Awesome.
So moving on in awareness training, these are some tips, okay? These are going to be your highlights. So a lot of common sense here, but these are the ones that we key in on. Obviously, slow down, all right? Everybody is in a hurry nowadays. General motoring public is going 6 to 10 or better over every speed limit out there, even under worse conditions. We have to make sure that our drivers, our people understand the reality and why you need to slow down. Give them the reasons why. Don't just tell them to slow down. Give them examples. Give them the reasons why. Increasing following distance. I mean, these are our top two focuses. By slowing down and increasing that following distance and giving more space, more time for reaction in those worsening conditions. Obviously, these are things that, without any doubt, will help to decrease the probability of having a collision with another motorist. It also gives you chances to react to other people who are, driving poorly. Another big one that most drivers already know this, but it's always a good idea to remind them, hey, don't forget, when you get into these wet, icy, snowy conditions, don't put that cruise on. You need to focus. Now, understand that this comes with an element that's going to hit them as well. Because if they're not able to use the cruise, now they're they're going to be more engaged, and they're going to wear down a little bit more or a little bit quicker potentially, because now their foot, and they're having to constantly be feathering that accelerator, watching that speed. It takes a lot out of you. I remember I had a trip to make. I was moving my daughter from North Dakota. She decided to move out of Fargo, North Dakota. If you know Fargo, it's like way up north. They get tons of snow. And she said, "I'm done with it, Dad. I want to move to a warmer climate." So she picked North Carolina, Wilmington, the beach. I mean, you can't get any far different than that, right?
Nice.
So she says to me, she goes, "Dad, can you help me move?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course. What do what do you need?" So, "Can you drive the U-Haul with my stuff in it?" So I'm like, "Okay, great. You make the arrangements for the truck. I'll meet you there. We'll do all this, and then we'll get things rolling." I get in the truck. We get it all loaded. I get out on the highway. I try and set the cruise. Wait a minute. There's no cruise on this truck.
Oh boy.
I had to go from North Dakota to North Carolina with no cruise, through mountains and all kinds of stuff. It will wear you out.
Yeah.
So, just a tip. All right. No cruise control in those conditions. Checking forecasts. How many times do your drivers check forecasts? Do you share forecasts with your drivers? And do your dispatchers say, "Hey, look, we definitely got some snow inbound. We got some ice. I know you probably see this, but just reminding you, we got more coming," or whatever the case may be. This shows a couple of elements. One, you're advising them and giving them some information which is valuable to them in their world. It also gives the element of, "Hey, I care about you. I'm sharing with you things that should be concerned in your world, and I want you to be okay." So checking the forecast, sharing the forecast, very important. Vehicle preparedness. There's so much to do here. The normal pre-trip that most people do, which I hate to say it, but so many drivers don't do those pre-trips.
Yeah.
If there's something that I can do to fix that, I would love it. I think I'd be a millionaire if I can figure out how to fix that one. Pretty much for every carrier out there. We do a lot in education on inspections, and we don't focus saying pre-trip, or we don't focus on saying post-trip. What we do is we focus on the reason why those inspections are so important. Most of the guys will understand, if you give them the reasons why. So preparing the vehicle. When you're dealing with ice and snow, some of the things that is extremely important in the preparedness is making sure that the backs of the trailers are kept clean. If the snow and ice builds up on those lights and any placards or anything you've got, the motoring public can't see them as well, and they're already tailgating, driving way too fast. They're going to run into the back of your guys, causing some issues, obviously, from that standpoint. Tires. Make sure your drivers are, if they do nothing else, tires are extremely important. Have them, get them into a routine to checking those tires, not only in the beginning of the day, but every time they stop. If they get into that routine, you're going to be in good shape. Brakes, wiper fluids. Windshield wiper fluid is very critical in the wintertime, making sure that it is the defrosted kind, the kind that doesn't ice over. It's a good blend. Don't shortchange your guys on that. And the wipers are in good shape. Besides being a DOT write-up, at any point in the year, this time of year, it's critical to keep that windshield clear, and you're going to have a lot of clutter going on the windshield. So, other thing is a full tank of fuel. Tell them to keep the fuel tank, as full as they can, so that they don't, if something happens, they've got plenty of fuel to get where they need to go. And then also, and there's more to this, but also winter weather gear. Make sure that they understand and they're prepared for, if something does happen, that they are going to be protected from winter weather. Gloves, hats, coats, boots, whatever it takes, pair of coveralls, just, maybe even a small training session on winter preparedness from a personal standpoint would be very beneficial. So, and then finally, one of the other things that I like to mention is making sure that they understand to pay attention to the road conditions and driver behavior. They can be the absolute best. They can be the absolute safest on the road, and their day can be completely wrecked by somebody else or some all of a sudden change in road condition. This is another thing that wears them out. Constantly checking road conditions, constantly looking at other drivers. So one of the things that is extremely important in this is to stay in touch with your drivers with regard to fatigue. Winter weather driving fatigue is higher than typically any other time of the year. It's a darker time of the year. We don't have as much sunlight. The driving conditions are typically a little bit worse, and your people out there on the roads have become more selfish and more aggressive than ever before. So it does take a lot out of your drivers. So that's the bulk of what I've got, but kind of going down a couple of other items here. The big thing is don't be afraid to share experiences. I know I mentioned it before, and as Steve asked me how, what we do. So we do like to share driver experiences, and I know it's not a comfortable thing for a lot of carriers to do out there. You're afraid of exposure and causing yourself, potential pain from a legal standpoint or something like that. Obviously, you've got to get that approved and make sure that it suits for your organization. But we found a great amount of success in sharing. The drivers want to know how they're doing. They want to hear the good stories, not just the bad ones.
Right.
So sharing the experiences, especially the good ones, absolutely helps to make sure that they're absorbing and building that culture of safety and safe operations. And then, as I mentioned before, praising for that job well done. Now, that's it. Believe it or not, I've crushed pretty much all my points in here. Steve, I've got a quick wrap up on this, which just kind of talks about some high points. And I don't know if I blew the budget on this, I didn't know how
No,
much
no,
time.
not, no, not at all.
I
You
wanted
know,
to get in, take care of business, and give opportunities for people to ask questions if they want, or if they want the rest of their day back, they've got it.
absolutely. I think, the keys that I took away from your presentation, Paul, are, obviously, winter weather and being prepared. You have to get ahead of the game. Think about when you get ready to set up training, whether it's through our platform or however you're doing it, you know, winter weather is coming, so you maybe need to start with these training sessions maybe in the middle of fall,
Yeah,
before this really all starts to get going, to sort of get the mindset ready, because we do know sometimes these things sneak up on us, and we get a real early winter storm. So I
yeah,
think it's very important to do that. I did want to remind everybody um, a couple of things. Just this week, we released a couple of new pieces of training video. One is entitled Ice and Snow, so it is very appropriate for the kind of weather we're having now. Also, we've kind of updated a video called Winter Weather Readiness. It's actually a checklist, which I think is a great thing. We're going to have that content available. I'm going to put a little poll question up here. And also, we now have the capability through our platform to offer a digital checklist. This would be something a driver could open up on their smartphone and see a checklist that they can kind of go down the list and make sure that they've done those things that we discussed here, and maybe a few other thoughts out there. So we're trying to make sure that we give you the tools to accomplish the kind of training that you need. And I think checklists have always been a good thing, and make sure that you don't forget something. So I see quite a few people here looking to see if we can help them get access to this content. If you're not a current customer, you can say yes. We'll reach out and tell you what we do and how we go about it, and whether there's something we can work with you on. So
so
go ahead, Paul.
yeah, as Steve mentioned, and as I had mentioned as well, the Infinity catalog has a lot of titles in it that have been very helpful for my organization over the years. We do also a lot of custom content,
Yes,
which is very helpful for us. And we found that it draws in our drivers a little bit more, creates a more personal environment for them, connecting with our team members. And so I'm happy to share that. If anybody wants to reach out and see how we're doing that, I can take some time to visit with you on some of the successes that we've seen.
very good.
Ultimately, what you're going to find, I 100% believe this, is that people ultimately want the same thing that we all do, and that's to get home in the same condition that we left in.
Right.
We want to make it home to our loved ones, and ultimately they will rise to that challenge. Of course, with positive guidance and reminders, and it's it's a beautiful thing when you achieve that, and it's probably one of the most rewarding things that I found in my career of doing safety is when you see that happen and you feel it. So
Yeah.
um, basically, my biggest thing is just never let off the throttle of safety because it matters way too much. So
Yeah. I
um,
mean, we're trying to, not only protect the lives of our drivers, like you said, and make sure they can get home to their family, but we're looking out for the motoring public out there. I wish we had a way to provide them with some training. And that's really an
oh,
issue with this winter stuff, especially around here in Texas. We have so many people that live here that have never driven in that kind of weather. And I think that makes it an even more challenge for professional truck drivers out there to maneuver around a bunch of people that don't really know what they're doing at all. So I think this is very timely, and uh, I don't see any questions that have popped in. We've got a lot of positive comments, uh, and I wanted to thank you, Paul, especially for taking time out of your day. I'm sure you're always busy, but I do appreciate it. And uh, I thank you for joining us and passing on some, I think, very important information, especially with the time of the year that we're in. So, Paul,
absolutely.
thank you very much, sir.
Oh, it's my
And
pleasure.
one last
Always.
thing, I've responded to a few people, but this webinar was recorded, and we will provide a link to y'all so you can access the replay. And of course, you can share it with other people, perhaps that weren't able to join us today on the live program. So thank you all for joining us. Everybody stay
Yes.
safe, stay warm. Paul, thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you again sometime soon. You got to come down to Texas.
Oh yeah, I'll be down there before you know it. Of course, you got to get rid of that cold weather. It's kind of deterring me from making that trip.
Yeah, wait a little while. Maybe next week it'll be in the 70s by the end of next week. So
Hey, I'm holding out for that warmer weather, Steve.
there you
I
go.
am. I'm looking forward to it.
Very good,
So,
Paul. Thank you,
thanks
sir.
everybody for
Thanks,
joining the
everybody.
webinar.
And we hope you'll join us on our next webinar. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you, sir.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.